So today I want to talk a little bit about fear. Fear is a common human experience, and a lot of the time we have to face those fears every single day, and maybe some of us have more fears than other people do, but the reality is that everybody has something that we fear. Everybody's afraid of something. Everybody's scared of something. And in fact, I'm scared of things. I'm scared of heights. And I don't know why I'm scared of heights, but there are times where I'm climbing up the stairs and I'll look down the stairs and I'll think to myself, okay, this is a little bit too high, and I'll get scared. It might be because there was an experience when I was a kid where I fell down from, I believe, the third story, and there happened to be a younger college student who was standing around, and they saw me falling, and somehow they caught me, and so I was really, really lucky that I was somehow rescued, and I'm still alive today, and that I'm still in one piece. And very often I find myself in that place of fear where I look off of maybe a balcony or a higher lookout point and I feel a nausea inside of me. And there was one time where my wife and I, it wasn't very long after we got married, we went to this place near Quebec City called Montmorency, and we went up the staircase, and I had a really, really hard time getting up that staircase, and she was fine. She was looking off of the railings, and she was like, look how high and look how beautiful it is, and she's fine. And meanwhile, I'm holding onto the railing for my dear life, and getting to the top of that mountain, there's this bridge. There's this suspension bridge type thing. It's pretty solid, and it wasn't even really a shaky bridge or anything. There were all these people on that bridge, and yet I found myself grappling onto the railing. And when my wife would look over the side of that bridge, she'd be like, hey, take a look, it's really high, it's really nice, and she's, come on, and I'm holding onto this railing, and it's like, I know this is not happening. And what would have taken maybe about 20 seconds to get across that bridge took a few minutes. She found it hilarious. Meanwhile, I'm dying inside. Truth is that many of us are scared deathly about something. Maybe not to that degree, but we're extremely afraid of something, and it could be people, it could be in certain kinds of interactions with people, certain kinds of moments or circumstances that we find ourselves very, very afraid, and it's really difficult for us to deal with those circumstances in those places. And certain people bring that fear out within us. Certain objects make us very, very scared. Like, I'm very tryptophobic. For those of you who don't know what tryptophobia is, you can take a look at Google, and if that makes you scared, you'll understand my pain. And there's a reason for the things that we're scared of, and the circumstances, or the kinds of people, or the kinds of circumstances with people that make us very, very scared. Now, it says in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So the question in response to this verse is, what do we fear the most? What are our greatest fears? And why are we afraid of them? What is it that makes us afraid? And there are two things that go hand in hand when it comes to the topic of fear and the things that we're afraid of. The first thing is that the reason that we fear is that we also have the thing that is very opposite of love, and that's often hate. Now, hatred and fear go hand in hand. There is no way working around it. Now, why do we hate? And we come down to the root of if we're lacking love, why do we hate certain people or certain things or certain circumstances? And we have to be honest about why we fear things and why we hate things. And the very first thought that I had today was, what exactly do we fear? I'm not talking about the details about being scared of heights or being scared of insects or being scared of spiders or things like that. What about those things or those people or those circumstances are we afraid of? The deeper I thought about fear and why we fear these things is because we're afraid that it might hurt us or that we might get hurt. We're afraid that it might cause us some sort of bodily or internal or emotional harm. Now, why do we hate people? Now, in terms of our interactions with people, the people we fear most are probably the ones that poke at our most insecure places in life. And maybe make us feel inadequate, maybe make us feel like we're not enough. We're afraid of the people that poke our deepest and inmost insecurity. We tend to hate people that offend us, that totally just rub us the wrong way. We often resort to hating the people that we can't see eye to eye with, who we just can't agree with, or just the manner of their character or the things that they say may just deeply offend us. We hate especially the people that have offended us in the past, or maybe you've had an experience of destruction or hurt or pain or disappointment. And the reason why we hate these people is because they challenge and they cause discomfort in our everyday living, in the patterns that we might have in our daily lives, maybe our habits or maybe the way we do certain things. They just annoy us. They cause us a lot of inconvenience and discomfort in our lives, and so we say, I don't want to deal with this person. Just get out. Just leave me alone. You just caused me all these problems, and so stay away from me. And if we have to look at the picture of, is this love or is this hate? In many ways, when we treat certain people that way, it's not love. It can't be love. And there's nothing really in between. When you reject someone and you say, you don't belong here, I don't need you here, I don't want you here, you're no good, I think that is a form of hatred in many ways. I think the issue with our society today right now, with humanity, is that we've often sort of made that gray ground where we say, I love you, or I don't like you, and if I don't like you, just stay away from me. I don't need you around in my life. Get out. When we look at the depth of that sort of sentiment and that kind of attitude and heart and behavior, in many ways, it's not love. And if it's not love, to that person or to those people in our lives, it's hatred. It's translated as hatred because the very first response from those people is, they hate me. They don't like me, they hate me. Even if you say, I don't like that person, and that's about it, I don't hate that person, usually the people on the receiving end of that translate it as hatred. If there's no love for that person, is it not hatred? Now, hatred seems like a really, really harsh and strong word for disliking somebody, but if it's received that way, in many ways it's the same. If the offense and the emotion is received that way, it's the same. And the reason why we reject and the reason why we hate and the reason why we dislike is because it causes us to be very, very uncomfortable with where we are, who we are, and what we're doing today, and the habits we have of everyday life, and the way we think, and the way we want things to be. Now, if this life is not about us, it's not about my accomplishment or my comfort or my peace and my sense of security in every single day, but rather that we live in the love of Christ, who gave everything that he was and is for us, that we should take the example of Christ every single day. Love ought to be taking over our hearts and our lives, in the way we act and the way we treat people and the way we interact with people every single day. And that means doing our best to love and to accept and to be there even around people who rub us the wrong way, maybe just say the wrong things, or may just do the things that we don't want them to do or don't want things to be like. And we find ourselves frustrated with the people who might seem, in our eyes, maybe a little less capable, maybe a little less skilled, or maybe know a little less about how to do certain things around the office, or do things around our work, or do things around the house. You know, we may have children, or we may have parents, or we may have people in our lives, our friends or colleagues or schoolmates, people like that who just rub us the wrong way. And it's because they don't fall into the mold in which would bring us the most comfort and convenience. We hate because it pokes at our pride, but also, whether we realize it or not, it also pokes at our insecurities and our shortcomings and our fear of not accomplishing what we want to accomplish every single day. We fear because we're scared of change. We fear because we're scared of also not being accepted. We hate the thing most that we fear to become. We fear the thing most that we hate. Now, the scripture specifically says to us, there is no fear in love. In fact, it says, love drives out fear, because fear has nothing to do with punishment. And so the thing that I want to encourage you today is this, that there are fears in our lives that often consume us. And maybe we have certain fears that we're dealing with today, right now. We ought to strive to love. And we ought to strive to love in ways that reflect the love of Christ. But we don't try on our own strength. And we say, God, fill my heart with your love, that I may not be driven by fear, that I may not be driven by my insecurities, that I may not be driven by hatred because I fear these things, but instead that my heart would be filled with your love that is always overflowing with your grace. And so the challenge that I have for you today is this. There are people in your life today, maybe you need to forgive, even if they don't change. God forgives us, knowing that we'll still sin every single day. And it's not up to us to change people, but it is up to us, and it is a charge to us to forgive and to love and to have compassion for our neighbors, regardless if they change or not. That is the premise and the call of every Christian, including myself. And so that's what I want to leave with you today. Have a wonderful rest of the day and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I'll see you again next week. Bye.